Hello and welcome to the Screen Chronicles. I'm Colby. With me, as always, is Steve of Dumnonia, and today we're here to talk to you about the new show on MGM Plus called The Winter King, a show based on the novels written by one of our favorite authors, Bernard Cornwell, who also wrote our favorite show of all time, The Last Kingdom.
Woo!
And Steve, how are you feeling kind of going into this show? You know, we read the books obviously before. What were you thinking going into it?
I mean, kind of, if you watch our trailer reaction, kind of give you the thoughts we had after watching the trailer. I was excited by some things and nervous by some other things that I saw in the trailer. And this is kind of the opposite of The Last Kingdom. The show, we're going to talk about The Last Kingdom a lot in this too, just because it's a similar style, similar setting, and based on books by the same author.
And because
series.
we end up talking about The Last Kingdom and everything we talk about.
We usually talk about The Last Kingdom. But so nervous about some things, sad about some things. The Last Kingdom, you and I started. We had never heard of the books. We had never heard of the show.
Right.
We got into it with zero expectations. Were blown away, and then discovered the books later. And then we there were some things in the books we thought the show did better, and we're glad that they cut out or changed. Right. And there were some things we're like, oh man, if we would have read this first and then saw that episode, we'd
be disappointed,
bummed out that there was this huge, awesome battle where Purelig is throwing bodies on people at a gate, and they just and instead it's an empty town they walk into. So there's that sort of perspective we had The Last Kingdom. Unfortunately, with this show, we read there's only 3 books in the Warlord Chronicles, is Bernard Cornwell's King Arthur series. The Winter King, is it what's Winter King? Let me look that up real quick. Sure. Enemy is God is one.
Enemy, I think of the Excalibur is the last one.
Oh yeah. So it's Winter King, Excalibur, and Enemy of God.
Is that the order? 1 second.
I think that's the order. Let me see.
Yes. No, Winter King, Enemy of God, Excalibur.
Okay. So there's 3 books in this series: Winter King, Enemy of God, and Excalibur.
Yep.
And it's done in the same style, though, as his other books, which are historical fiction, even though Arthur is a fictional character. And most of the other characters that he brings in, well, maybe he's a fictional character. We don't know. But he brings in Lancelot, blah, blah, blah. But it's told through the eyes of Derfel. And Derfel is looking back on his life and time with King Arthur, and he's telling this story
like Uther did.
Yeah. But he's telling it to someone else. And
exactly.
The thing is, with Uhtred's story, it's just Uhtred just telling his story. He's not really telling it anything specific. But the thing that really makes, to me, the fact that the narrator's telling the story interesting is, I won't spoil with who he's telling it to, but he's telling someone this story. And it's funny because his position in life, he has some injuries, and he's working for someone that in the story was basically his enemy, and someone that he at the time back in his youth had power over essentially. So you're kind of wondering, there's this sort of mystery that you're like, how is his story of the past gonna line up with what his present situation is, because it seems impossible. He's this Christian, he used to be a pagan. I won't spoil that stuff too much here, but that's one of the important things about him being the narrator. And why he's the main character. And even though it's him telling a story about Arthur, there's times in the story Arthur isn't around. It's just Derfel doing Derfel.
I think, and pretty much, I don't know if you want to jump into spoilers here before we.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of the series, The Winter King, the first season here. And we're just going to tell you our thoughts, kind of recap the episodes, We're going to try and
maybe a little compare and contrast to the books, and where it's different, where it's the same.
Yeah,
exactly. So, but if you haven't seen it yet and you want to watch, here's your spoiler warning, because we're going to dive into it here. I think it would just feel better naturally to start talking
stuff. I think you should check it out. But
totally,
I don't want to tell you one way or another.
We love the books,
mm-hmm.
and like you said, I think it's a little bit. It's hard to go from books to shows, because inevitably in movies and shows they have to cut stuff out. You have to. I mean, you can't make it an 18-hour movie like the book. I think it takes probably that long to read the first book. And so they have to cut stuff out. With that being said, I think we had to try to go into, especially after watching the trailer, with a little bit more of an open mind, because we love the books so much that we wanted it to be just like the books.
Yeah.
And I was actually pleasantly surprised with some things, but I'll tell you, at first, like you just mentioned before we gave the spoiler warning, Arthur, pretty much for the first half of the book, is just kind of heard about. Like Derfel refers to him. They say, oh, he did well in this battle, but he's off doing whatever. And he doesn't show up for a long time.
Yeah.
In the first book. And I was a little bit worried. And when we talked about the trailer, we noticed Derfel's not even like in this trailer.
Yeah, you didn't see
Derfel's the main character of the books. And the first character we basically meet in the show is Arthur. And I was like, oh, they are just going completely different direction. I thought at first. I was like, because Arthur is not even supposed to be in it. I was wrong. They actually give us some context that's not in the books, and it might not even be part of the book, some of the context they give us, but I actually liked what they do. And they kind of start the show before where the books start, as far as Derfel's story to the person he's talking to. They show us a little bit what happens before that point where we enter the story. And that's why we actually meet Arthur right away. And I'm okay with that, knowing that now, but I was worried when I started watching.
I was too, because like watching the trailer, it looks like it's all about Arthur. And the show starts out with Arthur, and it shows he's a bastard to Uther. He comes back from battle. His legitimate brother, the heir to the throne, is dead. So Uther takes it out on Arthur, the bastard.
Everyone was like telling him, don't even go up there. Like, he's not going to take it well. He's going to banish you. He's going to punish you. And Arthur, being his first sign of nobility, is like, no, I have to do this. I have to face him. Yeah.
So it's at the moment I was a little like, what are they doing?
Right.
But I thought it was a cool way to do it without having Derfel narrate Arthur as this noble guy. Because like you said, we never see him, but Derfel does talk about him when he's in his youth. He's like, oh, and Arthur was doing this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you never see him. So we get to see that Arthur's noble. We get to see that he's a bastard. We get to see why he's not in Dumnonia anymore. And we get to see how Uther, his sort of behavior is, and sort of get some exposition on the time period and stuff. And so I thought it was cool. I thought it dragged on for a bit. It felt kind of like it's just, and I get they're trying to show he's a dick. He's beating up Arthur over and over again, but I was like, all right, like this, to me, this scene is like they're milking. He's a douche. Like, I get the point. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's and then they show another thing that they twist it around is they have Arthur rescue Derfel.
Yeah. So like in the book, you hear in the book from Derfel himself when he's retelling his story about his last memory of his mother, when the Silurians raided his village and basically were raping and slaughtering everyone. And what they do to sacrifice to the gods is make a death pit with spikes, and they'd throw like kids onto it. I'm not sure if they threw other maybe adults on, I'm not sure, but definitely threw Derfel onto it while his mother was getting raped. And that's a core memory for Derfel, right? I mean, it's really important to the story. And I guess the story writers, I would assume, going into the show, like, we're like, well, if we're not going to have like a narrator, how are we going to tell this this crucial part of Derfil's life, right? Because even in the show, he flashes back to it a lot in the first couple episodes,
Yeah.
to that memory. And I liked how they did it, because after Arthur gets banished, they have him wandering around, and he stumbles upon this burnt village with these corpses. And he's looking upon, and he finds a boy who's on the spike that appears to be alive. That is pretty much exactly what I sort of pictured. Although when they say he missed the spike in the book,
I took it as he didn't get hit at all.
Didn't even get hit at all, right?
Because he never talks about a scar or anything,
right,
that he had from it.
And this was sort of my first sort of, like, if I could have changed something in this first episode, I thought the way they made the stab through the kid look through Derfil, like right through the heart, like right through the center of the chest. Didn't it look like that?
I think it was his right shoulder. So
well, I think that's what it was supposed to be.
But
when I watched when he showed the scar later, it was up in the shoulder, which makes sense. Like, you could possibly survive that if you're lucky.
But
right?
Still, even where it was like, I think that's still through a lung. Like that's a spear. It's not like a needle. Like some movies and stuff, they get away with like a bullet because of like, oh, it missed the artery and this and that. It missed and it went all the way through. But like, that's a thick fucking spear, and he's twisted on it all strange. Like he stood up. So I'm just, we're both
to me it looked pretty central. It looked pretty central. With that being said, so
cool. Arthur, because it's we don't know how Derfil got out of the pit or anything like that, but I thought it was cool that Arthur was the one to
find him.
Yeah, and it was kind of a cool scene, having again Arthur being this sort of fatherly, noble guy. He's like, come on, like he's motivating him, and he's trying to calm him down. He goes
back to the place he's banished too.
Yeah,
to save him. Like, he's not supposed to be there, and he basically risks his own life to save this boy that he doesn't know. Like, it was pretty cool.
I that was a change that I did like.
His talk to him when he was on the spike was cool.
Yeah,
comforting him, and
it was a cool scene.
So my first impressions of Arthur, and let's Ian de. His name is Ian de Castecker. I hope I'm saying it right. Is good. I think he's got a really good temperament for this character. I like his acting so far, and so really good first impressions.
I think he's doing the character right. And then we get to see he takes him to Merlin at Avalon. I have to say, I really so far do not like how Merlin is written, and I'm not a fan. I don't know if it's how he's written, and that's why he's being played this way. Maybe the direction, I don't know. But again, Merlin, why I like the book series so much is there's some things that stay pretty true. Arthur is this pretty noble guy. In the legend that we know, and then the story that Derfil tells. But there's some other things, like Merlin was not like a real magical wizard dude necessarily. I mean, maybe he was magical, but again, Bernard Cornwell, his books, they're usually historical fiction. So he sets real events that happen, and he sort of sprinkles in some fictional things. Maybe he changes the time and place of a battle or something like that. But most big history things stay the same. Merlin, probably maybe fictional, maybe not, who knows? But one thing, Merlin typically in Arthur lore is the wise old Dumbledore figure that's nurturing and this and that. But in Derfil's tale, Merlin, although he raised him and he was the lord of a land, he's really just obsessed with the British gods. Religion, the British gods.
Yeah.
And he would pretty much do anything. And we find out in several books later, he will do anything
and
to get the gods back. So he's
not like
this kind of nice, nurturing.
No, he's
guy.
an asshole. He's an asshole in the books.
Yes.
And it's a cool part of the books because it's funny. Like
Mm-hmm.
he just basically every other line he says to someone is an insult to their character.
Yeah.
He just thinks everyone else around him is an idiot.
Mm-hmm. That's what he thinks so little of everyone else's
so
intelligence.
that's where the approach they seem to be taking for Merlin in the show is completely different than the way he's written in the book. And I don't
Yeah.
know if this is intentional, but so far, like if I didn't read the book and just saw the show, I'd just be like, oh, Merlin's like this really nice guy, and he cares about people. He cares about helping these people he finds. Like he seems very nurturing.
Which again isn't bad, but it's also,
No.
if you already have this Arthur story that does something different and does it well and good.
It's one of the best parts of the book is Merlin.
And I haven't told anyone who's an Arthur fan that's read this book, and none of them have been disappointed. I know there's some people aren't happy with what they do at Lancelot. I personally like what they do at Lancelot.
I think it's a great twist. I think it's a great twist.
But
we'll see if they do that in the book here or in the show here.
They freaking better. But right now, I'm kind of disappointed with Merlin. There's another scene too where he just like out of nowhere like pops up when Derfel and Nimue are trying to do the horizontal tango, and he's like, by the way, Nimue, you can't have any attachments because this is the way of being a druid, and he like repeats that over and over again. That never happens in the books.
No.
First of all,
no,
and like
that's but it is in the books. But in the books, she is sort of off limits because it's Merlin's girl.
Like, yeah.
So they did a different spin on that. They did a Last Kingdom spin. That reminded me of Iseult in Last Kingdom. Like once she had sex with Uhtred, she couldn't have visions anymore.
Yeah, but again, Nimue didn't want to not be with Merlin because not because she was told not to be with Merlin in the books, is because she just was like I have to do these things. There's these 3 sacrifices I have to make, and like I can't just live a normal life because I want to do these things, not because Merlin told me I can't do these things or it won't work.
Well, I kind of get that she is doing it for her religious beliefs still in the show. Because it's not just because Merlin told her to, but because Merlin like is telling her like how important she is going to be to the gods. Like,
but anyway, just my point is though, I just don't like what they're doing, Merlin. I just don't. And
well, I think one. I was curious what you were going to think about this too, because I've always interpreted these books as almost like, because I do think a little bit of like fantasy does come into these books. I've always interpreted that there is actually a little bit of a mystical element for Bernard Cornwell's style. Like it's definitely more than anything else he's done. And they're just like some things that happen even in the later books that to me are like, well, this just doesn't seem as grounded in reality as his other ones. Not that they're overtly magical, because they're not, but I've interpreted them a little bit more as flexible. And the show is definitely going in a more mythical, like they're having visions regularly, like they're seeing the future. They're
everyone,
and that's where I was going to get back to. I don't know if you could make that argument for the wound that Derfel had because they were treated by druids. Maybe that's why he could survive that terrible wound there. But I don't know. I was thinking if they're going with the fantasy route, maybe that.
If they are, it's hard to tell. One thing that's in the books is Merlin's religion and Nimue and what they're doing is based off of the old pagan British religions and the druids. That's what Merlin is. He's a druid. And in this, he just kind of feels like he's like the magic guy to me. And again,
and I agree in the books. Yeah, that's one of the descriptors in the books about him is like he's wiser than everybody else because he's lived way more than everyone else, and they don't know how old he is, but they're pretty sure he's like crazy old.
So like it's just like this guy's like a young
so they made him young,
maybe not super young, but probably like
way 40, way younger than he's described in the book. There's no doubt.
He seems too nurturing and caring. These are all good things in a real person, by the way. But I don't want Merlin to be.
It's just different. It's a different take than what the book is. That's for sure. Maybe he'll come back from his because he's away now too. He left well, to find Arthur, I think is what he said. We'll see if we'll get to that part in a second. That was also a difference in the books, I think. Anyway,
yeah, it was.
So, by the way, shout out to Derfel, because Derfel, my boy, we've all heard that before, bro. We've all heard that before. Like, yo, I'm seeing wolves. I'm seeing wolves. I can't do this right now. We've been there. So
cock blocked by wolves. Who hasn't been there, right?
It's the oldest excuse in the book.
Oh, sure.
Oh, you're seeing the wolf again?
Yeah.
There's a wolf by the bed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see a wolf.
I get it. Okay. No, I'll just go.
We can
stay
still
strong,
get
my man.
Though. No,
stay strong, my man.
poor Derfel, and he's in. And he's got Hal's daughter. Definitely has a thing for him, and she's a cutie. I really just want Merlin to be a cantankerous asshole, and that's the main thing. And an old man, and an old man.
And I think it would add a lot of humor to it. I think it's not totally. I haven't had many funny moments so far.
No,
except for when the baby got stabbed in the belly. But other than that,
and let's be honest too. Like maybe this
kidding.
is they have like we saw Arthur earlier in the show than we did, and then he did go away though, because it did become Derfel's story. But they just wanted viewers to know Arthur is in this story.
Yeah.
This is his backstory.
So that's the point when I'm like, oh, okay, here is when the book started. I'm with it now. Like, that was kind of cool now that I understand, like, this is all pre where the book starts.
Yeah, maybe that's
so I like that. And then from that point, there started to be a lot more consistencies with the book.
Yeah.
And I would say up until the end of the and this is not talking because there's some character inconsistencies we should touch on. We talked about Merlin already. I want to talk about Morgan Le Fay in a second. Until the end of the second episode, there was a lot of consistency, and actually, relatively in the second episode, we're not going to jump ahead too much, but it's pretty much how I pictured that whole thing go down. That was pretty cool.
I enjoyed that.
That was a pretty epic part. Anyway, let's rewind back to the first episode. Let's talk about Morgan Le Fay for a second, because they picked a pretty actress to play Morgan Le Fay.
pretty person.
And I don't know if you recognize her, but she had a fairly small important role in Star Wars.
I did recognize her, but
Rogue One.
Does she play young? What's her name? The lady who's like, many Boston spies died.
No.
No. Then I don't know.
Guess. She plays Galen Erso's wife, who gives Jyn Erso the Kyber crystal, and then goes and tries to confront Krennic and like points the gun at him and gets shot.
I haven't seen that movie in a while. That's a good movie.
That's her.
Okay.
So it was a small role in a great movie, but an important role to play.
And she's not disfigured at all in this. Like,
in the books, I don't like Morgan Le Fay for 1 second in the books. She's nasty. She's got a sharp tongue, and this is kind of funny because in the second episode, she's talking to the priest, and she's like flirting with him almost, and like they're like talking really friendly conversation. She's like, "Oh, I've never married because they've always said I've got a really sharp tongue," really kind of sweetly. So I asked my wife Ani, who hasn't read the books, what is your opinion? What is your opinion of Morgan Le Fay so far after 2 episodes? She's like, "Oh, she's pretty. She's really sweet." As I can see in the books, she is. I said the same thing. I didn't like her for 1 second in the books. She's so mean, and she's really like, she wears a mask all the time because she's disfigured. She was like a gold mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just went a different route again. They pick someone who,
which I don't get. Like, why? Yeah. Why would they change that? And that's to me,
And
like,
I was questioning it, like,
kind of makes
okay,
me
you're
worried.
changing it, but then you're still saying that line that you have a sharp tongue, and that's why you didn't marry. It's like every man in the land would want to marry you. So, like, this doesn't make, you know what I
Because
mean?
I have a sharp tongue.
If they made her disfigured,
Then it would make sense.
then it makes sense, like in the books.
Not a
Like,
pretty woman.
right.
Well, I have a sharp tongue, so people don't want me. No, you're not married because you're
Yeah.
disfigured, and
And
people
she
didn't like
seems
that.
to me very, very motherly and caring, and she's like trying to get everyone to safety in the second episode. And
Yeah,
I
she's
was
too
like, oh,
nice.
this is different. This is different. But she's doing a good job. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah,
like her.
I'm not
I think the
knocking
actress is doing good. Like, and we're
her.
comparing it probably too much to the book because they're just taking different routes in these things.
Listen,
You
we
know?
love the book, so we're going to be biased. We're going to give you that perspective. And I would say, even, and I did try and step back every now and then and be like, all right,
I did.
like, I
It's
know you
different.
love the books, but pretend you don't know and you're just watching this show. And I mean, it's impossible to completely do that. But like I said, there are parts, there are some scenes like I did like. I like the setup with Arthur and Uther at the beginning. But I
Yeah, it was
did feel
good.
like it went on a little too long, and it felt like it
Yeah.
was trying too hard to be this really dramatic, violent scene. And I would say, like, anytime Merlin like walked over and he's like, "By the way, Nimue, remember you have to be alone for the rest of your life because of this." Like, that happened a few times, and like, but definitely the second time it happened, I was like, like, all right, like, do you think the audience like doesn't fucking remember? Like, like, stop saying that. Like, we get it, and it just, like, I feel like that conversation happens multiple times, and it's just like,
Then he goes to Nimue and he'll be like, it's true except with me.
and
Um,
later there that party. I feel like it goes on like too long with
mhm.
Derfel being like drunk. And I get they're trying to show his flashbacks and it bothers him being in the death pit and everything, obviously. I thought that
I
went
would
on.
hate it.
Another thing too
I
that
would
I
hate
wish
going in the death pit.
I would hate
It
death
would
pit.
bother me too.
It would, you know what?
It
Just being
bothers
a
him
little
that he went
baby
into the
about it.
death pit.
Death pit doesn't sound too bad, right?
It's annoying.
It's annoying.
What
Oh,
a
death pit.
nuisance.
Oh, death pit.
Anyway, but what was it? Let's Dervil, for
But I'm not
example.
knocking the actor of
Mhm.
Merlin or of Morgan. It's just they're different, and I think they could be more interesting if they were played like they were in the book, though. You know, if they were written like they were in the book.
Yeah, I think the acting's pretty good overall in general. And
Yeah,
not only
so do
the
I.
acting, but also the look and the feel of the time period is on point. It's on point. I think they did a really good job. Costumes and set and the landscape, the color palette.
Color
It's
palette's
all
pretty good.
it's pretty good. I believe this is the time period.
It does feel
Um,
gritty. I was
it feels
worried.
gritty. People look like they're covered in shit sometimes. It's
Yeah,
good.
I like that.
Um,
I was a little worried watching the trailer. I was like, is this just like a bunch of like attractive young people? I
yeah,
thought it was kind of gonna be
like
like this is Bridgerton, but it's like set in
right.
the like Last
Like
Kingdom times.
I
But it
like the
does
guy who
look
played
rough.
Uther. I like the guy who played Uther Pendragon, but he looked like shit all the time. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay, like that's probably what a king would actually look like at that time, living in a not
I
even a
do
really
like
a
that.
like somewhat of a castle that's like built into rock. Like it's pretty cool
Yeah.
character the way they did it. I like the look of it.
Mm,
It feels tribal, I think.
that's what I liked.
Um,
Yeah.
and really back in this time period, like there were tribes basically,
And that's
you
what I
know?
think a lot of people who are used to like seeing King Arthur media, they're used to like picturing like medieval during like the crusade time periods, right? Where there's
Yeah, like
armor,
stone castles,
long swords,
which didn't exist
castles.
in England until the 1000s, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so
So
yeah, I
it's
think there's a warped perception of Arthur actually.
I do think they're getting the look down right. I wish there was more chainmail and less of like those stupid
Hmm.
cross leather thing armors that these old shows seem like they feel like they have to do all the time. Instead of
Yeah,
chainmail is cool, dude. Like chainmail is cool. Use chainmail.
Yeah.
Um,
And let's talk about Dervil for a second, because it's
yes,
interesting, because I didn't really have a good picture of him when I read the books.
that's one thing I was thinking too.
Like,
I always just kind of pictured like kind of how I looked, but like different as Derfel. You know, like,
yeah.
not because they describe him as me. It's just like I had no other
And
description of him in my head, I
I
guess.
can't say I pictured him like this with
No.
long blonde hair, and right now he's very sort of soft, I think. Like he hasn't had battle experience. He in the second
He's
episode he
kind
like
of a
he
pussy,
gets his
yeah.
blade wet. And I like that though.
Yeah, I do.
I like that he's more like he's been raised by in the safe place, has not had a lot of adversity besides, his mom dying and getting thrown on a death pit, hearing his mom get raped repeatedly, seeing Nimue
Pretty,
get
yeah, he's had a
raped.
pretty
He's
easy
had a
life.
pretty easy
You know what? He does in the book stuff,
um
he does train sword with Hal. So I was a little
that
upset
doesn't happen,
that he
and
didn't train with Hal and then that
and
Hal
and
died and
he didn't
we didn't get
take the
his
freaking sword.
his sword is Halbane in the books. And we
He
didn't
wasn't even
get
fighting with a sword. He was fighting with like, did you see what he was fighting with?
like
It
a
was like
thingy, right?
some kind of farming sword, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I was kind of like, oh, is that
Boo.
Howlbane? I was like, that's an interesting thing. I was like,
Halbane.
that's, that's what he's fighting with.
Yeah.
And then no. And so then like he gets a cool sword later. And I was going to think that
I mean, it's a
Howl's
sword.
daughter was going to pick it up and say, that was my father's or something.
That would have been
And
cool.
that never happens. Maybe it'll happen. But that's such a cool thread in the book, is he gets Howlbane, and even later Arthur sees like, whose sword is that? Oh, it's Howlbane's sword. And he's like, oh, he's like the best swords. He's the best person to train with or
Hmm.
something, and
Yeah,
it's a
he
cool
trained with him
moment.
too,
And he
which was
trained
cool.
with him too. Yeah, they don't really go into Howl as a great warrior. He fights hard at the end, but they
It's
don't
just a
really sell
farmer.
him. He's just a farmer. It's not how I pictured him in the books. Um,
Boo. Boo.
because so
No me gusta that.
wish that part was in there. Um, anyway, let's
Back to episode
rewind it.
one. No, we're jumping ahead.
We're just jumping ahead. We want to talk about
We're
that
just
second
covering the
episode.
characters. We're covering the
We're
characters for
covering
people.
the characters. So with Dervil, he definitely looks like either like an elf or a hobbit from Lord of the Ring or
You could
something. Like,
100% be an elf.
he could be an elf. But I like that it's sort of setting his character up, because I think in the books it's true that like he starts off as like a sort of a nobody,
Hmm.
and over time he becomes this hardened warrior.
He becomes a well-known
Yeah,
warrior with a lot of
and
reputation
a
and
lot of
silver
reputation and silver
and land and
and
silver.
um and there's a cool scene in the first episode. He wants to be a warrior, and
Hmm.
he sneaks into a training room where they have like this log. He sneaks in there, and then he just starts freaking whacking the hell out of it like no one's gonna hear. And we met him earlier, but we get to see Owain, who is a pretty cool character in the book as well.
Oh,
I think
Wayne
that.
looked different than I pictured him. How about
How
you?
so?
I thought of him as shorter, fatter, and bald for some reason. I don't know if he's
Oh
ever
no,
described that way, but that's how I pictured him.
no,
So
that's
like,
not how I picture. I just picture him as like a typical warrior. I almost pictured him as a sort of Carl Urban type build, somewhere in that realm of you know
I wonder why I
that's
pictured him that way. I don't know.
yeah. And so for me, it was a fairly accurate, like, going into it. I was like, okay, this could be Owain.
Hmm.
He looks tough. He looks like he could,
He definitely looks tough.
you know. And so they had a cool moment where he comes in and he kind of like acts like Dervil's in trouble. But no, he like gives him tips, and it's a cool moment there.
And he alludes to like he's gonna train him. So I don't know if he does train him because Derfel looks really untrained his first sort of fight.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that kind of and we so we
Yeah, he like alludes like, if you take care of my horses, I'll teach you stuff.
mhm.
Free labor.
So yeah, we kind of jumped all over the place, but Derfel grew up with Merlin. Merlin is a lord of Avalon in the kingdom of Dononia. and he grew up with Nimue too, who is being raised as a another druid, I would say.
Well, yeah, because in the
Merlin.
second episode they show when Merlin finds her,
yeah,
which I don't think is in the books.
No,
and this part was interesting because Merlin takes her out and says the sea god, whatever the name is, saved you, and she's like, no, it was his wife. Which is a weird thing to say, but it basically in the show means that she has a certain understanding of the gods. Merlin interprets it that she can see the gods.
Yeah. And Merlin sort of acts as an advisor, which I like that he had like kind of like a real sort of political role instead of like he's like the court wizard. Even though that kind of is also his job. And then
but these people, and it makes sense for the time, I think, that they would listen to like the priests or the religious figures of the town.
Oh yeah.
And that's why Uther Pendragon relies on him so much for things. And he's like, he always asks for, where's Merlin? You know, I need his guidance on this, even though they don't listen to Merlin's guidance.
No.
Of course not.
How about that?
Like, so you're right. So
we
also
got that
going off on. But the big thing that's going on is Uther Pendragon needs an heir.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem. So Dumnonia, Uther Pendragon is getting old. He has a very young wife, Norwenna, and his true son just died, and then he's got a bunch of bastards, Arthur being one, Morgan being another, and he does not want his bastard son to be the king. Right? He's got a lot of disdain toward Arthur. Even though everybody says to him, yo, Arthur is like the freaking GOAT, bro. Like he slayed these dudes. He's never lost a battle. Like he's the one who should come and defend us. And he's like, no. So he's like, I got to have another heir. So he tries to have another kid with Norwenna.
I did love the line when Uther's beating up Arthur and he like tries to insult him and he's like, you're just the son of a whore. And he's like, you don't insult her, you just insult yourself. I love that line. That was great.
A great line. That was a great line. Again, I was just impressed by Arthur's performance so far.
I would say the character of him is spot on. I wish he was a little taller.
Yeah.
A little more built.
I can live with that personally. I can live with that because like he can still be a great warrior without being huge, you know?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's just that's how I pictured him. And that's how
I think I pictured him a little buffer in the books as well.
I think he is described that way.
Described like
I think he's very
like
stands ahead above everyone else.
Yeah. So they're trying to have another kid. They do have another kid. And it's a boy. And this is again where the show is fantasy. Merlin like touches the boy and just sees nothing but frickin' death and suffering.
It was a pretty awesome, like demonic vision, though.
It was a great vision. It was
like someone with this mask, just like decapitating people and blood flowing and stuff like that. It was pretty sweet. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
And he tells that to Uther basically, and he's like,
I just saw the third season.
Yeah. So we need to kill that. And you know, he also says the baby's got a club foot, and this is also from the book, the line like, well, he's going to be a king. He doesn't need to walk or run. He just needs to ride a horse. So it's fine. It's all good. But yeah, Merlin is kind of suggesting let's do a late term abortion and let's just save a lot of lives.
I can whip up a death pit real quick.
Arthur in here to rule, since he is your son and he's like the smartest guy on the planet. But no. So Mordred is sent to Avalon to be safe.
The reveal of the child's name was pretty sweet though too, wasn't it? He was like, I don't know, he said something along the lines of like, oh, hail the future king Mordred.
It was a great delivery.
It was really good.
The guy who played the king, he was good.
He did good up. I forget his name, but I see him in a lot of stuff.
No, he's in a lot of stuff. He's in
especially
a lot of stuff.
Like Guy Ritchie's movies.
Sherlock Holmes movies. His name is Eddie Marsan.
Yeah, that's
and Yeah, he's in like the like Book of Shadows and stuff, or Game of Shadows, whatever it's called.
I love those movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
So
did a great job as Uther for sure. Even though I don't think Uther had any speaking lines in the book. Um, but yeah, that was pretty cool.
yeah.
Arthur's still banished. And
Yeah,
then
so
Merlin
I
sees
was gonna
this
say
vision.
they send him to Avalon to be safe, which I think is hilarious because like what keeps you safe in Avalon?
I know the place of Avalon. It was cool looking that it's just like this tower.
Where do the people of Avalon go when they want to get safe?
I would say they would
To
go to
Caer Cardern. That's where they run back
Caer
to, where the baby was born. So
Yeah,
like, I don't get why they send. I guess just to be with Merlin, and Merlin will keep him. Merlin raises all these people and keeps them safe. So I guess that's the reason why. Um, that's in the books too. So it's not necessarily.
I pictured they had like in the books, so they describe they have like gates and stuff though. Because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Gundleus, when he rolls up, there's like nothing. Like in the books, like, oh, open the gates. It's
exactly. That is a difference in the books when
And in this one, they were just
Gundleus.
like, well, he's here in our yard. There's not much we can do.
Exactly, he just rolls in. Um,
That is one thing, though. Later
that's
on,
true.
Uther
Yeah.
has people swearing in, and there's this guy, Gundleus,
Yeah,
who
they say Gunleus. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is who was a rival. So that's another thing we're hearing. All the other tribes of Britain are sort of at war with each other. And this guy was serving another rival tribe. And now he's coming to swear fealty and he wants to serve the baby. And that's what he says. And he's showing he has a cross on. And you see this is sort of like a new religion to some of them. They're like, oh, Christianity. A lot of them are still pagans. But he's, trying to virtue signal. He's trying to show he's a Christian. And he swears his loyalty. And at this time, too, Derfel has left Avalon. And that's when he's been hitting the
Hitting the
wood,
gym, hitting the bag. Yeah, hitting
hitting the old wood bag. And then he gets to peek in and see some things too when he's there.
And he notices that who this guy is swearing. He's like, I've seen this guy before. It's the guy who threw him on the death stick, the death pit. It's
the old death
raped. This guy who raped his mom. Although in the books, isn't
That's
it?
not.
It's not. It's
some
one
druid.
of his henchmen, but it's his henchman. It's Gunleus's henchman.
Yeah, but it's some druid that does, because that the death pit is a druid thing to like make a sacrifice.
And so I don't think it's Gundleus exactly who rapes his mom, and it's not him who throws him on the death plane. It's I forget his name right now, but it's like someone who works for Gundleus.
Yeah.
And
I'm okay with them changing that.
I'm okay with that. Change that. And I think they're turning I think there were two henchmen from Gundleus in the book, and I think they're just making it that woman in the second episode who's not in the book, right? I don't know from the book.
No. No, she's not in it.
And so I think they're just, and she seems to be somewhat of a witch to me. So maybe she's the druid that he has, and they're just making it instead of the nasty guy that tried to kill Derfel. So there might just be a somewhat of a piece that's missing later in the show that's in the book because they deleted that character. That's fine. It's not that important.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So what else was I going to say about that? Oh, he recognized this is the guy who tried to kill my mom, and
he's not happy about that for some reason. I really don't get it.
Forgiven. He's not taken the noble path of forgiveness, and he wants to kill this dude when he's leaving, and he's going to until Nimue sees him and stops him. Although it's like extremely obvious that he was about to pull a knife out and stab him.
I know,
but I don't think I'm not criticizing the show here. Because like I think to Gundleus it was obvious, and Gundleus is like getting back, like, oh, what the fuck?
Oh, you think so? Because I was like, to me, it seemed like no one noticed when she stopped, but like,
no, I think it was awkward.
Derfel's like, oh, so you're gonna leave, huh? Oh no, yeah, I was in a death pit, huh? Oh, let me show you, huh? And then she like like stops it, and just like no one seems to react to that.
Because she insulted him too. I think for sure he knew that he was about to get stabbed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the way I interpret it, because he looked like he was backing up toward his horse at that moment.
I thought that was just him trying to like figure out, like, is this guy trying to say he was in a death pit that I did, or is he just like thinking like was this guy nuts saying he survived death pit? And two, in the books, he says that Derfel points out that like he couldn't be cursed by that druid who was trying to curse him at the time, because if you survive a death pit, then the person who threw you in the death pit, their life belongs to you. So right. I wonder if that was like going through his head too. You know,
that's a great point. I also love in the books how Derfel, when he's telling, sometimes Derfel speaks in his head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's telling the story to the person in the future, the current time, I guess technically. He will say sometimes like, well, maybe it didn't happen exactly like that, but I made it a little better or something.
Yeah,
like he does say that sometimes. Like he elaborates stuff. He exaggerates, whatever. He makes it a little. He adds a little bit here and there to make it interesting.
And like that's with me with some of the things that are more mythical, mystical in the story. One, it's someone who believes in that stuff is telling the story. So if they if you're talking to someone and they, you know, they believe in angels, for instance, they're going to tell a story where they say angel from God did this, and that's part of their story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's to Derfel. He believes in pagan religion stuff, so it would make sense that he says, and then he drew the curse that made this person fear for their lives, and that's why they ran. And it's not because that person also thought of that and just didn't want to get hurt, and that's why he ran away. You know, but like, so I always look at it as when I'm reading these stories that something natural happened, something that's explainable by science or human behavior, influenced what happened. Yeah. But Derfel might be attributing a mythical thing to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, though, but in this show, it seems like
they're going straight,
see the future and stuff.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. And talk to pigeons.
Pigeons.
Yeah, Nimue like speaks with a pigeon later on in the second episode.
They go, Derfel's dead. She's like, nah, that pigeon just said he's not.
The pigeon said he was alive. Pigeon said he was alive.
But like, if you remember, like Last Kingdom stuff, like signs, right? That's something the Northmen and the Danes believed is, you know, like a bird flying means this or whatever. So, you know. That one to me makes sense, that she like just saw something and to her she attributed he's alive, and it's not actually the bird talker.
She got really fucking lucky.
Yeah,
that he was alive. Otherwise, she just brought the baby to. They're like, let's not have someone go check. Let's just all go. Bring the baby.
All go with the thing we just ran away with.
It's like a 95% chance I'm right about this.
We just sacrificed someone else's baby. We keep talking episode 2. Let's episode 1.
Episode 1. Let's wrap it up here.
Yeah,
I thought it was a decent first episode. I wouldn't say it had the rapping power of some episodes, like that, like just pulls you right in. But I thought it was good, and I
would say I definitely noticed some. Sort of the cinematography was kind of similar to Last Kingdom, but it still has its own. It has its own unique color and stuff, though.
It's its own feel, I think.
But there's still like you can tell there's like hand cam, people look shitty and things like that. So, I mean, those are all good things. I'm glad they're doing those things.
Yeah.
And I would say though after the first episode, I wasn't completely sold on the series. I wasn't like biting for the second episode like I was when we first saw Last Kingdom. The first episode, it drew me in with Ragnar and Uhtred and all those, like the new father-son component, and I'm like, what is a Dane? And like it seemed like a whole new world to me. And this one, it didn't do that. I would say honestly the second one has, though. I'm kind of
second one definitely did
itching to see the third episode though.
Yeah, the second one, and I would say the second one started slow.
Yeah, it did.
But finished fantastic. A really good episode. We've talked a lot about it already because it's been sort of the interesting parts to talk about. But this is the episode where even in the book, like the first thing that reels you into the book happens in this episode.
Yeah.
Like the first wild thing that happens.
And they did that pretty well. So, I mean,
yeah.
We heard about Gundleus is supposed to be working for Uther, and he's supposed to go put down someone else's rebellion thing or something. And so
he's got to prove himself to Uther,
Yeah.
And also,
everyone doubts him.
By the way, real quick tidbit. I love how they brought the map out of England. It wasn't England yet, but of what is now England and Wales out.
Oh, yeah,
Scotland, yeah. And they sort of outline, this is Dumnonia, this is Siluria.
I love that too.
I never really pictured yet in my head.
Same, yeah.
I wonder if is it in the book?
I think it might be.
It probably is in the book, which yeah. But anyway, so that was nice to see
the map of the kingdoms of England, like Northumbria and everything, are mapped out. Yeah. So
that was cool. So anyway, Mordred is now in Avalon, and then guess what happens? Uther Pendragon dead. He dies. He has a long death scene, which I have to say, just like his other scene, a little bit drawn out too much.
I would say it's too drawn out.
Ani was like, stop talking and just die.
I was honestly thinking the same thing. And like you said, like it starts out a little slow, this episode, and to me, this isn't a character like Alfred, where we've had 3 seasons with them. We get to see this character build up. All I've seen is this guy has been a dick to his honorable bastard son, and he's just kind of, he's just kind of a all right king, it seems like, but he's also kind of a dick. So like his death scene just going on so long, I was like, what is the point of this? Like, we're never going to see this guy again.
He's got to be a great king though, because the Pendragon means that you're like not only you're king of your land, but you're like king of all the United Kingdoms. Like, right? Like he is the penultimate king.
Yeah, I still don't think that
you don't just get to be like
Arthur.
Arthur's not immediately Pendragon if he becomes king. Like he has to get his way up to Pendragon.
Yeah, I would say I still didn't like that scene though, and it's I think they could have accomplished the fact that there was a significant death by like showing like a quick scoping scene of like other people mourning the loss and hearing it from messengers and stuff. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. A little drawn out scene.
Trim that down, and I want to see more cool Derfel and Arthur stuff. So
cool pyre scene.
That was
Owain
cool.
Sets it. I like that. That was
want to be buried like the old ways. That was cool.
And so he's dead now, and that's when Merlin had already gone out to find Arthur. He gone, and so that's when Norwenna had gone to Avalon. They're all at Avalon, and Gundleus arrives. This makes sense because earlier, Uther had promised Norwenna's hand to Gundleus as a union after he died.
And he's like, what can I do to like prove I'm worthy of you and everything? And he's like, I'll do anything. He was like, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right, well, go walk my Jeep. And
yeah. So yeah, they that's the promise made. But I don't think we've said it yet. The guy who plays Gundleus is great.
He does a good job.
He plays Tancred in Nightfall.
Okay.
He's like the right hand. He's like what's his name? His best friend. His name in it.
The lead.
Yeah. Tom Cullen, his best friend.
I recognize him. I couldn't place him.
Yep, that's Tancred. He's got a completely different hairstyle. He's got like lighter hair in that and a beard. I think he's pretty good. He's pretty badass looking. He's a pretty good bad guy. And then he comes and arrives to Avalon. Like you said in the book, there's gates and there's walls, and they keep it open because this guy is supposed to now be a friend.
He's supposed to be betrothed, or I think even married to Morgan or Norwenna, right?
Norwenna. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, it's my husband. Let him in."
And they're supposed to protect Mordred until he grows up and can be king. So here's the thing. I think there's someone in the book, correct me if I'm wrong, an experienced soldier of some kind, maybe it's Howell, who just senses like, oh, this is not what it seems like. Let's get ready to go. Wasn't there?
Yeah, it was. I forget who. I don't think
maybe it wasn't Howell.
Maybe it was Howell. Actually,
but there was an
right,
experience. Yeah, like before anybody else picked up on the tension, he's like, something is not right here. Like, we gotta get ready.
He's riding with like full men, full armor, and everything. Like, this is not right. Yeah.
And but it's too late. They let him in because most people are like, oh, well, he's gonna marry her, and this is what the plan was. And he's like, bring me the baby. And this, okay, so back to the show. That's also what happens. They don't have to go through gates. They just show up through the forest.
They're just in the yard right now.
They're in the yard. And they're like, bring me the baby. I want to see the baby.
I want to see the baby.
They bring the baby out. Cute baby. Cute baby.
Very cute baby.
And this was wild because I was, knowing that it was going to happen, I was like, how are they going to do it? Because they got to do it tastefully. How do you can't kill a baby on screen. You can't kill a baby on screen. No, like maybe they'll just show his hand do something. You'll hear a little cry and you'll see blood in the swath. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I have never been more wrong. They straight up like
stab a baby.
They just show the baby get stabbed in the belly, and like the baby almost even has a reaction like, oh, like,
that was crazy.
That was nuts.
They obviously didn't really stab a baby in real life, but they showed like normally like when they show like or like in a movie or something when like they go to kill a baby, like you just see the guy, he's like, and that was it, and then they go like this, and as soon as they like start on the way down, it cuts to behind them or just like people,
or like to someone's reaction, not looking,
Yeah.
No. They wanted full view of the baby getting stabbed, and they wanted not just a full view, but like overhead view.
It was an overhead.
You can see the baby. That like this, like people, this is a real baby we're stabbing. We don't pull any stops for this.
All practical. All practical.
It's all practical.
No CGI in this.
That was wild. So even knowing it was going to happen, I still had this crazy reaction.
I
was like, "Whoa!" That was Ani didn't know it was going to happen, and she reacted accordingly as well. But like, she was just like, "So what? This baby got stabbed." We both had the same reaction. We were like off the couch, like crazy moment. Obviously Morgan Le Fay was like, well, I knew that was going to happen. And I asked Ani this later because in the book, it's the same thing. They don't actually give Mordred to him because they're smart.
I like that they're smart.
Gundleus is dumb because he doesn't check the feet.
I mean,
my thing is they walked up with two babies. Like there's two people standing there. There's two babies.
Oh, they did? I didn't see it.
Yeah, there were two babies there. Well, there were two babies at one point. Maybe not right away, but it was right away. There were two babies standing there.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And they bring one of the babies, and he doesn't check the feet. He just takes it at their word that this is the one and kills. Whereas I think in the book, there's not two babies. They just bring a baby out, and they just, oh, well, this has got to be the only baby.
Well, this is a baby. I didn't see the other baby. So, I mean, I guess I can kind of see what you're saying. But I mean, you're in the heat of the moment. I mean, you've got a baby to stab. You know what I mean? Like, and then you do it, and you're just like, holy shit! I just stabbed a baby. You know,
that's got to be a shock, even for him.
It's be a shock. He's like, oh damn, I just did that. And plus, too, like everyone like immediately draws their swords, which I love that. Like, it's immediately like tension between his group and the Avalon people. Like, and then you're just like, oh shit, it's gonna go down.
And I was thinking, how much of this are they actually going to do? Because this is a brutal scene in the book, with Nimue.
And you don't see it; you just hear about it. So I was pretty crazy. They show him, and at first he
They
started to
did
rape
that
her.
more tastefully than the baby stab, I have to say, because they basically, like, when they're about to start doing it to her, they like knock Derfel out, and he's eyes are closed, and when he opens, it's just like three guys around her, like belt, like putting their pants back on. You know?
Yeah. 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 I felt bad.
Oof, brutal.
Um,
And
yeah.
by the way, the girl who plays Nimue is great as well.
Oh yeah, I do like.
I
her
thought like,
Nimue.
oh, this could totally be her from the book too. I was like, this is like, she's really killing it.
It's not how I pictured her, but
No,
I like. I think I like it more than
okay,
however I pictured her.
cool.
She has like a real unique look about her. She has like a lot of these
Yeah,
freckles, and she's sort of like, she looks younger, but like also mature at the same time. I can't place
exactly.
her
She
age.
looks wise.
I can't place her age at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, is
Now,
she like
mhm.
my age or like your age? You know, like I don't really.
Yeah, she like really old or like super duper young, and um, yeah. So that scene was brutal. It is from the book. You knew it had to happen because it's critical to her character development.
But let me say though, here, let me say right now. So some of the big things they missed though with this is like so in the book, one of the big things that Nimue, again, I didn't like that in the show, they're having Merlin go every 5 seconds, pop out of nowhere and be like, by the way, you two can't be together. Remember that. You'll be alone forever.
when she's getting,
While they're literally penetrating. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But first of all, I don't think that's a rule. I think that's just Nimue just knows Derfel wants more with her, and she knows that she doesn't want to pursue a family. She wants to pursue getting Britain's god, and she wants to become as powerful as Merlin. Everyone thinks that Merlin is the most powerful wizard, and she says there's three things. There's three sacrifices or injuries that you need to become as powerful as Merlin. Merlin's done all these three things. You need a wound to your pride. And when she tells Merlin this, she points to her private area. It's basically meaning rape. So I thought that was also interesting. I didn't pick up on that the first time because that
No,
means
that's
Merlin
very
was raped.
interesting.
And then she points out a wound to the body. So you need to have some sort of permanent wound to your body then. And then the third and final thing is a wound to the mind. So you have to go through insanity.
And we know what the wound to the body is in the book. We won't say it here yet because it hasn't happened yet in the book.
Well, I wonder if it's not going to happen because
I wonder that too.
So anyway, she gets, because after this encounter, she gets two of those three wounds. She gets raped, the wound to the pride, bam, and then two, she gets a wound to the body. Gundleus actually takes her eye in the books.
Well, that's what I wasn't going to say.
Well, I know you weren't going to say it, but I'm just saying I don't know if it's going to happen now because it hasn't happened at this encounter, and it was supposed to happen at this encounter, Colby.
True,
but I'm upset she didn't lose her eye, and not because I want to see a poor woman lose her eye, but because
I want to see her take over the world and get powerful.
And it's important to her character arc, and we've heard needlessly Merlin say that she's going to be the thing 3 fucking times now. So like, all right, well, you're setting her up to do that character arc. Well, you need to have those 3 things, people. And that's I don't want to say it's important that she was raped for that to happen, but it was a part of those 3 things. So that's why in the story, even though it was terrible and she hated it, after that happened, she wasn't like suicidal and everything. She was mad at Gundleus for sure. She wants him dead, but she was like, I've got these 2 things, Derfel. Like I'm already like getting there, you know, like that. It just shows her, what I want to say, her sort of obsession with that sort of thing, the same kind of obsession that Merlin has, you know, the same kind of thing that makes them not a perfect person. You know, the same thing with her, why she's not a perfect person, why she maybe not actually good for Derfel, because she's too obsessed with these other things.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, though, I'm kind of disappointed she didn't lose her eye there. And I hope she does. And I hope they explain the 3 things at some point. Because it's important. Also, too, her and Derfel at one point, they do like this sort of a blood bonding thing where they cut their hands and they say, now we're bonded forever. And that is also symbolic, and it's very important to the story, for the hand connection thing. I won't tell you why, but that hasn't happened yet either. So I'm a little upset with these two things. But otherwise, I'm happy with the Nimue character and how she's doing stuff.
Yeah. True. I just realized about the scar in the hand. Yeah. Wow.
That's important later because too, when Derfel's narrating, there's a physical trait he has, and that's a result of what happened with him in Nimue.
Yep. So anyway, exactly. So I liked the scene, and I liked all the battle moments in it, and the fighting looked really cool. The woman sorceress was just killing dead guys already, and I thought
she seems like that.
She seems that kind of way.
She seems that kind of person.
And they escape, you know. And Ani says something to me like, oh, well, it's kind of stupid that they wouldn't have like been seen when they were escaping. I was like, well, you know, when the craziness of battle, like I feel like at the same time, it's like it's just as plausible that nobody would see them. Because all these moving things going around, and most people are just afraid that they're going to get killed. I feel like it is plausible they just
and I don't think it's kind of how we think of things. Like when people at the time, I don't think it was always their mission to go and kill everyone at one place. It was their mission to just kill enough people to get the land, the silver, you know, and their mission was to kill the baby. So they killed the baby. They go and they kill Norwenna. And that was really their mission, you know. And that's, I don't like there's like, and it's supposed to be too in this village. There's supposed to be like probably what, like almost 100 people. Like they don't care if some people get away. You know what I mean?
Norwenna scene, dude. That Norwenna scene, though.
That was from the book too. Well, that was like the first thing I don't think the first thing in the book he killed the baby. I think the first thing is what he did with Norwenna, which like was brutal. Yeah.
And
that was brutal.
And it was just as brutal in the show. like, god damn, that was worse. That was worse than stabbing the baby.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. It was gruesome.
It was bad. It was nasty.
That's a bad way to die. If they told me to kiss the blade, I would have picked more on the shaft.
But the tip is the most sensitive spot. Would you maybe if you held the shaft while you kissed the tip, you wouldn't have been injured, you know, like it wouldn't have been able to go in as fast.
Something to like hold it, like, you know, I'm just gonna hold it so you don't stab me in the throat. Come on.
Yeah.
Good.
I just hold it off to the side. Yeah.
That was crazy. She's like,
that
was savage, dude. That's
not
like
the best way to kiss it.
That's
for sure.
like a half. Yeah, no. That's like out of a freaking like slasher film.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of craziness. Okay. So well done scene. Well done. Gundleus is the actor's killing this role. And
everyone else.
They get away in boats. They're sailing down the river. Nimue tries to jump out because she is just so mortified about what's happened to her.
And again, I feel this is one thing I'm just like, as a real human being, you know, you would be upset and you would do things like this, but it shows in the book that she's different than most people, and her obsession with becoming closer to the gods and everything. She doesn't react suicidal or anything. She just kind of tells Merlin, like, I'm closer to the gods now, Merlin, you know. And in this, I'm just like, she's like, I don't know if I can now because of this. And that's again, so that's opposite of what is supposed to happen.
But
right?
It does give us a great Derfel and Nimue moment where he stays with her, he calms her down, he jumps in after her.
It shows their relationship.
They lose the boat. I was just screaming at the TV, get the boat! The boat!
Stay in the boat. Stay in the boat.
But anyway, so he saves her. They have a cool moment, and the rest of the crew come and find them.
Hal's daughter.
Go. Yeah.
Morgan, another couple.
Yeah.
And
the couple who sacrificed their baby.
Yeah. So
that was an interesting little tidbit that they showed us their reaction, and they're actually holding Mordred, which is kind of weird.
They did the old switcheroo.
Yeah, and
just like
they made a vow. Yep, there you go. They made a vow to Uther that they would kill their baby instead of Mordred. They would sacrifice him.
So that's what. Yeah,
and then the wife is like, "You made that promise, not me."
I know. Like, come on. Like that wasn't said in the book. I mean, again, you can make changes, but it was just kind of like the man's the bad one here. And they're just like, come on.
That's just wild, like that.
Like
they would love their king so much that they would fucking sacrifice.
That's what I liked from the book. It was like that they were both so loyal that they just did that. Maybe it's more realistic this way. Maybe I'm dumbass. But she was like, well, you swore that. And I was like,
so they figure out Gundleus. Finally, someone brings the baby, and the feet are just two normal feet.
This scene too was a little dark, kind of morbid. That they just showed like baby's feet, and like the like you said, they covered the face and everything, but like the swath is bloody, and like, gross. And they're just like holding up a dead baby's feet. It's not a real dead baby, obviously, but it was still just like, oh damn, this is a dark scene. These are just evil people,
I don't think Ani expected that show to be that dark, to go to that level,
Yeah.
That's probably darker than anything we really see in The Last Kingdom.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of this, though, I do like how they are staying in the books, with that sort of tone. Because people back then were like so different than they are now. They don't have like the same morals as us at all. I don't want to say at all, but like it was so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they were used to terrible shit happening to them all the time.
Yeah.
And they are running away. So now they're being pursued. And these two guys are catching up to them. And that's the point where Derfel and the husband of the baby that got killed, I think, right?
Yeah.
They go running off to distract them from the rest of the women and the baby. And they're hiding behind these trees, breathing very heavily for hiding. I don't know if you thought the same thing.
I think that all the time in like horror, like thriller shows and stuff, they're always like,
yeah, they're just breathing.
And like
so
the guys
heavily.
Just walk by,
and like talking still, like not yet.
I know. I'm just like what?
like in a good, like the way they should have done it is like he looks and makes eye contact and like not like
yes,
the guy's going to reach, just like do like a shake, like Aragorn.
Like
Aragorn, I can picture him doing that. I think at one point and just then like do you give the nod or something, or he could say now, like now, and then
like for the wait, not now, and then he's like, I've never killed anyone before. And he's like, neither have I.
Yeah. And not.
All
right. We'll give it nitpicky.
We're really nitpicky here.
I like the scene. I'm not trying to rip it.
I honestly, I liked it. I liked it too. Cause like, he's like, I've never killed anyone. I've never killed anyone. And they both do pretty terrible, which I think would be realistic if you've never killed anyone.
I mean, they both do pretty terrible. The first guy has a fantastic axe throw,
but that was completely accident. And then he just
hit the guy right in the jugular.
Yeah, but
like, I don't know what you want.
I mean, yeah, he kills his guy pretty much immediately, but then he does nothing. He does nothing the rest of the time.
It's like in Harry Potter video game right now. I try to kill those stone guys before they even activate. Yep.
As soon as they.
I just trying to kill them before they turn on. And that's what he did basically. So
he just did it right before they.
It was pro move.
He did great.
But yeah,
but Breda would have got them. Breda would have got it immediately. Yeah.
Derfel does not. Derfel's losing his fight.
Derfel just gets WWE SmackDown, just suplexed over and over.
But somehow wins. He like puts the sword up at the right time. The guy dives on him. And it works out. So
it's lucky. The sword he gets to keep, which it's not Halbane, but it's
like I said, I was hoping the daughter would be like, wait a minute, he took this from my father.
Hopefully at some point.
Maybe they will. Cool looking sword, different looking sword.
Very pointy.
Pointy, not super long. We'll see.
Yeah, not by your standards for sure, but for me, that would look like a really long sword. Yeah, yeah.
False. Um, so yeah, so where were we? Yeah, and that's when the cuckoo bird tells tells Nimue,
Oh,
yo,
pops.
um, you'll never guess, like he lived, he killed him. It's kind of crazy, the bird says.
I
And
just saw some crazy shit.
um now they're good. They killed these guys. Now they just gotta get to Caer before they get cut off. Well, they're like almost there when they see um Gundleus and his soldiers and the witch woman, and they're basically running on foot toward the doors, and the horses are chasing them. And I was like, I really hope they do what they did in the book, because if they have them get to the castle, to the Caer before the horses, I was like, that's so unrealistic. That didn't happen. The horses obviously win, so I was happy with that. And I thought what was going to happen in the book was going to happen. It looked like that was happening. I even told Ani, she's like, oh, is Arthur going to come save them? And I even said to her, no, that's not what happens here.
No.
No, I said that, you know,
Yeah.
knowing what happens in the book. It's Owain who comes, right?
Doesn't Arthur come eventually though?
He does come eventually, but Owain is like the first one who comes out to
And they
meet
have like a shield wall fight, don't
Gundleus.
they? They
And,
have like
and he like challenges, Owain challenges Gundleus.
ooh. But is there like a shield wall battle too? Does that
Yeah,
happen? Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then Arthur
Okay.
comes later on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so
That's what I was like. None of them have any shields. Like, how are they gonna fight at all
yeah.
here?
So anyway, it is Arthur who comes and saves him. And it let me tell you something. It was pretty sweet. It was pretty sweet.
It's I don't think it's as good as the book because
No.
let me just say real quick. Um, so far I've liked the character of Arthur, and I was a little worried about how they were going to handle, but so far I'm liking it. Um, I'll say though that he's not just dressed in like shitty leather though. In the books they describe him as having um, fish scale armor, and it's all white, and he's got a white cape, and he rides him and all of his men.
Feathers on his helmet, like
yeah. It's and what I picture is like he's got like handed down like Roman armor or something. You know what I mean? Like
yes, I think that's what they say.
I think yeah, and all him and all of his men ride Clydesdales because they're these big, massive horses that scare other people, and like that's his whole thing. Like he doesn't fight in the shield wall. He rides those big horses, and like he just hopes it scares people, and most of the time that works. So yeah, I don't like that Arthur isn't as magnificently dressed. He's just kind of like in plain, that sort of like generic, like pre-medieval costume that they have like people wear in Vikings. And in I love the Last Kingdom. For whatever reason, they have all the background guys wear chainmail and stuff, and all the main characters wear like shitty leather costumes. Not shitty, but just not like cool armor stuff. And that's what.
So
Arthur
I thought Arthur was going to come in later on, and it's fine. We didn't see him in that armor in the beginning, and he's going to have this growth. And then when he comes back, he's been through some stuff. He's acquired this armor. He's acquired some of these amazing warriors that is like part of his crew, which he has. And I like that the show gives you that, like, oh, look at these guys he's picked up through his like travels. Like he's already created a cohort of freaking awesome warriors, which I think we're going to see more in action here soon. But you're right. They're not. He doesn't stand out necessarily like he does in the books.
He looks kind of generic. I would say he looks like a sort of a generic historical fiction movie or show character to me. His costume.
And with all that being said, though, I still liked the reveal of him there.
Yes, even though I'm complaining a lot, I still did too. Like they're cornered up against this sort of what I want to say, like almost like
a ditch, but it's got like a
but there's like the other side of the ditch has like a high
elevated
overlook to it.
little like a
The
little
ground
hill.
the ground is like high here where Gundleus is, and then the ground is lower here where Derfel is, and then the
Well,
ground
it
is really
raises
here.
up about double the height of Gunleus's ground.
Yeah.
And so Arthur did have the high ground. He says, Gunleus, I have the high ground. And then Gunleus tries to jump over him and he just fucking throws a spear through his chest.
But this reveal, it was cool. I'm not. I was honestly thinking like all right. I saw the trailer. I know Arthur doesn't look as cool. Like it's not going to be as cool as it. But like everyone like sees the men throwing spears, and they all look up, and like you can just see they're all like in awe, and like you can feel their energy, and that's what part of the book is too. It makes it so great. You hear Derfel's passion for seeing Arthur, and that's what you see. Everyone else is so like amazed at these men throwing these spears, and then you see just casually. I love too is like casual. It wasn't like he like shot from the sky like Thor or something. Like he just sort of casually strolls up to the edge, just looking confident, swagger.
They zoom right in on his face, just looking frickin' like
just in charge.
This is what I live for. These moments, you know.
And like I was feeling it then. I was honestly like I was getting those same kind of feels as I did when I read the book. I honestly kind of got it there.
Yeah. So it's cool. And I think what we're gonna have to do is try to, just like we did with the books of the Last Kingdom, is try to find the beauty like in that it's different. Like just try to separate them into two different things. You know what I mean? Because
it's kind of like a bonus.
It's like a bonus. It's like it's just a different way of telling it. And I think overall, I just want the show to be good. I just want it to be good.
Same.
And
Same.
I think it's just because the books were so good that it's like, you have every reason to make it good. So please don't mess this up. And I would say so far, they're not messing it up. I think that there are some things I wish were a little different. There are times it's a little slow, but for the most part, it's been really good, especially the second episode. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the future, because we're going to start getting, now that Arthur's introduced. I mean, Arthur in the book is not introduced to like halfway through the book, maybe a little less than halfway. But
I'd say a little under halfway, but yeah,
little under halfway, but
pretty far in.
Like if you were going to put the book on like a 10 episode series, it would not be in the second episode that you meet Arthur. You know, like it'd be too early. It'd probably be late episode 3 or episode 4.
Yeah. But I'm glad they are. I'm glad they are.
Yeah, because he's cool, and we'll see how much, now that he's in it, how much the attention takes away from Derfel into Arthur now. Because like I said, like we both said, when it was advertised, they didn't have Derfel in it at all. It was just Arthur.
They showed a microsecond clip where Derfel's looking around the rock at the men following them, and that was all you see of Derfel in the trailer. So and I love that they are following Derfel, and it's I think it's gonna be cool to see his growth to where he starts to where he ends. I like the show. And like you said, I just want it to be good. So far, I would say the show hasn't done anything. I think honestly, the only thing I think the show did better than the book was like Arthur saving Derfel from the death pit. I think that was the only thing for me, anyway.
That was cool.
That I liked that they changed and was different. But otherwise, I would say the show's either doing almost as good as the book, or not as good. So I would say, yeah, I love the books way more. Unlike The Last Kingdom, where I would say, like, I know, what's that, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, maybe even the 8th books, I would say the show does better than those books from the series. And there's some parts where I like the books or the show more than the books more consistently, even in the other seasons too. But there are like some parts where I'm like, oh, I wish they would have had this part where Uhtred goes out into the middle of battle and fights Ivar's son, and like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I would say consistently, though, I think from a bookend, I think Bernard Cornwell's Saxon tales are not as good as his King Arthur, his Warlord Chronicles series, which he's even said his favorite books are these ones. So I think that's fair to say from him too.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair.
So yeah, I'm sorry if I went too much about how the book was better or whatever. It's just that they're so good. They're so good. And like you said, I just want it to be good.
Yeah. So I think it's off to a decent start. I think I'm okay with it, especially after the second episode. Episode was really solid, really good. Acting is good, set looks good, costumes obviously they're fine for the time period. They're not, some of them aren't exactly what they are in the books. That's fine. We'll have to get, just have to get used to it. Maybe that'll change. And
maybe second season they'll give Arthur, if there more people watch, maybe they'll get him some good clothes. Armor. They hear this podcast,
Yeah. But yeah, so otherwise I think we've covered pretty much everything so far. And we are just left on that cliffhanger when Arthur arrives and takes care of business. We assume that Gundleus is going to retreat now. Right?
Well, I think they capture him.
They capture him.
Because
they'll probably, so they might capture Gundleus at this point.
Because Nimue is basically begging to let Arthur kill him, or to let her kill him. Yeah. But he's a political figurehead, so it's kind of tricky.
That's right. So we'll have to see what happens. Good. Let us know what you thought of the first 2 episodes. If you're liking it, and yeah,
let us know if you've read the books too, and if you're feeling similar to me, and tell me how I can get over it. I'm sorry. And otherwise, though, thanks for listening. And it's like we always say,
goodbye. And by the way, because they say it in these books, destiny is all.
Destiny is all.